Grab a cup of tea or listen as you go, ladies. This is your hour with Dr. Zoe, your life and relationship coach. With encouragement, on-point insight, inspiring guests, health tips, and advice, Dr. Zoe helps busy women keep their mind in the game by redefining your superwoman. You're listening to The Dr. Zoe Show. Good morning or afternoon or evening, wherever you are listening. I'm Dr. Zoe, and you are a woman who is strong and capable, and sometimes we just have to remind ourselves of that. If you're listening for the first time, welcome. My show is a live radio show that I also podcast. If you're a woman, you've come to the right place. I'm a licensed psychotherapist and life and relationship coach, and I believe that every woman has a superpower. And my passion, why I do this show, is to help you find yours, embrace it, and share it with the world. I love connecting with you, so you can connect with me by texting the word join to 38470. That's the word join to 38470. So today we're going to be talking to Maura Sweeney, author of the book series, The Art of Happiness. Maura's experiences range from corporate sales manager to suburban housewife, homeschooling mom to publisher to author, speaker, and entrepreneur. She is seriously a superwoman, and we're going to be talking about making those transitions in our lives and exiting our comfort zones. Speaking of comfort zones, I make it a practice of stepping out of my comfort zone regularly. Just doing this radio show is really much more of a stepping out of my comfort zone than I ever thought it would be. I'm the one that's used to giving advice to other people, and people talk to me. I'm a classically trained therapist, and I've been working, in that field for, I think, 17 years now. I always say 15 years, and then I realized over the past couple of years, I've been saying 15 years, and it's really more like 17 years. But as a classically trained therapist, we are trained to not disclose. We are supposed to be this blank slate. And so I've had that very much ingrained in me. And plus, I tend to be a private person, mostly because my mom is private and we've been taught you don't really share your business with other people. And so I have learned, and I'm still learning, the value in sharing your story. I know that there's strength in owning and sharing it, and I help others share their story on a daily basis. And so I do see the value in it, and it's time for me to walk the walk, I guess, or walk the talk. And I can think of a number of times when I have stepped out of my comfort zone in my life, and the results have been amazing. But the first step is always crazy, scary, and that goes for everybody. And which is why I try to push myself, like jumping out of airplanes. So I'm going to share with you guys a little bit about my morning this morning, because it was a little bit of a crazy morning. It started last night. My intention last night was to get to bed. And actually, I had a client that canceled on me, which worked because I was able to get to bed a little earlier. But my intention was to wake up, do a little meditation, do some exercise, make my kids breakfast, relax and get everybody off. But that's not what happened. I woke up this morning at 6. My alarm clock was supposed to go off, I think, at like 6:15, to my 11-year-old daughter with her face literally right in my face. So it's kind of scary. And on top of that, she had no clothes on because she wanted to take a shower in my shower. And so I don't know if there's something wrong with her shower. I guess I'll find that out when I get back home because I didn't ask that question. And so I said, yes, you can take a shower in my shower today. And so she did that. And I was like, okay, well, I'm awake. So let me get my day started. I'm going to do some, relaxation. And then my 4-year-old gets up and starts screaming. And so there goes my morning. And so I did try to do my 30-minute exercise. Beachbody, love it, which I ended up having to stop 3 times to, 1, help my daughter with something in the shower. 2, the dog went to the bathroom upstairs. 3, I had to wake up my son who was supposed to wake up and didn't. So there goes my 30-minute workout, which ended up to be 20 minutes. And so my day has gone like that. Drop kids off, make breakfast for my 4-year-old who didn't want the breakfast I made for her. And so I have 2 kids that I homeschool, and then I have 2 kids that are in traditional school. So I'm kind of shuttling everybody back and forth. But I say all of that to say that I am a woman, just like all of you women are out there, mamas. And sometimes we really feel like we have this amazing balance in our life and it lasts for about 3 seconds. And then other times we feel like, one thing drops and it feels like everything is falling apart. And so what's important is to recognize that some days we're going to have those crazy days. And I was able to get to the station early today and relax and have my minute to think about what we're going to be talking about today. And then we have to roll with it when we have those days, knowing that as long as we're putting some things in place in our life, we will have balance long term, but there will never really be balance, all the time, every moment. And I think about that meme. It says, just because it isn't perfect doesn't mean it isn't wonderful. So, on that vein, I am excited to talk to our guest, Maura Sweeney. Welcome, Maura. Can you hear us?
I can hear you, and I'm smiling. I'm so enjoying your narrative because it is real life, isn't it?
It is real life. It sure is. So, Maura, tell us a little bit of your background and why you're so passionate about women stepping out of their comfort zones.
I'm so passionate about women stepping out of their comfort zones because I have a background of living inside such a box.
Mhm.
It was probably considered by some to be a great box. I was brought up to be an attorney in the New York, New Jersey area. My grandfather had been a prominent attorney and he passed away when I was little.
Mhm.
And the family decided when I was very young, Maura is going to be an attorney. And what happened is that not that there was anything wrong with that, it just was not for me and didn't speak for me. And because I was had finished with a political science major in college and was halfway through law school and felt like, now you're the psychotherapist, if you were to look at me back then, midway through law school, you would think this poor woman needs a break. She needs to step out because I was living inside a box for which I had no identity and no passion. I just couldn't imagine myself in a career, but it was more than a career, Dr. Zoe. It was an identity that really did not speak for me. I was more creative. I was more outside the box. And I actually had to leave law school. And by doing so, I left behind decades, I would say, of expectations that my parents and family had placed upon me. And so that was a huge thing. The reason why I'm so passionate about what I do years later, I had a corporate career in two national telecompanies. I was a homeschooling mom. I helped my husband build a business, is that I know that there is greatness and there is purpose and there's passion and there's truly an authentic nature we each have. But oftentimes, if we're only taking our cues from outside environments, we end up becoming smaller versions of ourselves. We're not nearly as happy and we're far less energized. And that was my backstory. And I'll even tell you this, when I brought up our only child, which was a daughter, and homeschooled her, I didn't bring her up to be what I wanted her to be. I exposed her to everything I could and tried to connect her with things she loved and things that spoke to her heart and her interests. And that was what she ended up following. And I'm just very passionate about finding a world where people can express themselves and live a life that feels true to them. And I feel like when we do that, we have more energy, more happiness, but we also create a better society for all of us.
Well, I think that's a really good point, especially the first one that you made, because when we talk about comfort zones, the question is, how do those comfort zones get created, right? And they get created by a combination of expectations, especially for women, that our families have, that our spouses have, our parents have, in conjunction with things that we are used to doing, right? And our bodies, our brains actually strive for regularity. So we tend to find a zone and stay in it and not often think of, what do I really want to do? What am I really passionate about? Or how do I step out of it? So that's a very, very good point. So tell me a big one. Of course, your big step was leaving law school when everybody expected you to be a lawyer. How did that pay off for you? And what were the pitfalls?
First of all, it paid off for me because I kept my sanity.
Right. Yeah.
But I knew that I could not do a 40-year career in an area I didn't want to live in, that I didn't have a passion for, but I didn't know what I was supposed to do. So I really had to just step out into unknown zones and really kind of inquire everywhere I could until something kind of struck me, hit me, whatever. And that was where I found myself later on in corporate environments where I could be in leadership capacities, develop people, train people, and really promote people and promote great cultures. So it was very, very difficult leaving. It really played a lot with who I thought I was and what I was supposed to be, but it really helped me find myself and also grow into a bigger person. And I forgot the second part of the question you asked.
Well, I was asking about the benefits and then the pitfalls. So I'm assuming your family must have been disappointed. How did you deal with the emotional repercussions of going against the grain?
Especially when you might be the type of person that always wants to please others around you. That was very hard, but I really knew I could not get up out of my chair and drive myself to school anymore. So I was literally at the place where I was trying so hard to be a pleaser, but my body, in a sense, had shut down. Very, very interesting. If you were to look at pictures of me back then, you'd see that I looked vacuous and I really was losing all of my energy. And I could tell you, I was in my mid 40s. I was home with my daughter. And I remember my mother saying to me one day as I was looking over a contract from an attorney we had hired. And she said to me, "Oh, Maura, too bad you didn't become a lawyer." And I said, "Well, why is that?" She said, "Well, you could have written this contract." And I remember laughing at her. And I said, "But why would you have wanted me to be something I didn't want to do? And why can't I hire somebody to write up a contract for me?" It really took me a while to find myself, to continue to go in my own path, and then to gain the confidence. And the other thing I have to say, I remember saying to my mother, "Well, Mom, if it was that important for me to be an attorney, why didn't you go ahead and become an attorney?" And I think that's a frequent thing, don't you? That people put things on their kids.
That is an excellent point, because what I was going to say is often those things people put on us aren't about, they're about them. And it takes us a while sometimes as women to realize that we need to let other people keep their issues with themselves. And we need to deal with the guilt or the angst or anxiety that gets created when we're disappointing other people. I'm writing an article right now about women and guilt and this feeling of having to take responsibility for other people. So it's interesting that you're talking about that. I think it's so important. And sometimes it takes women a while to get to a point where they realize, okay, am I doing what I want to do for me and what I think is best for me and my family? Or am I doing what somebody else wants me to do? And I know that every time, and I can think of, a couple, major points in my life, in my marriage, in my parenting, where I was able to sit and look at some things. And there was a big mind shift that happened when you recognize, I'm going to leave that comfort area and do what I really know and feel is best for me.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because this is a segue into it. I became a far better corporate manager than I ever would have been as an attorney, because what it was doing was putting me in an environment where my best talents came to fruition, because I was able to work with a multitude of people. I was able to create an environment where everyone could be included. And I think that as we do follow our inner lead, that energy, that excitement, that curiosity, even, we end up with more energy, we end up with more confidence, and we tend to end up extending ourselves continuously beyond the old comfort zones as we start taking over new territory, but in good and creative ways. Yes. And I think that's important for all of us to at least give ourselves a little bit of time to start thinking about what are we doing versus what do we really feel internally we should be doing.
Absolutely. Well, we're getting ready to go on break, and I want to just leave you with another little quote. You are under no obligation to remain the same person you were yesterday. That was very freeing for me. And we're going to come back and we're going to talk with Maura Sweeney about some tips on how do you know when it's time to exit a zone? And how do you do that? And how do we deal with the fear of change?
People ask me, how do you have so much energy? I am not a coffee drinker, but I love the benefits of matcha green tea. More antioxidants than coffee and a smooth energy, not the jittery kind that lasts me all day long. Perfect for you supermoms too. I have searched the world over for that perfect matcha for my smoothies, and I have found it at Kiss Me Organics. You can get it too at kissmeorganics.com. Enter the promo code Dr. Zoe, DRZOE, for 10% off and free shipping. Experience the smooth, healthy, organic energy of matcha green tea. KissMeOrganics.com.
Hi, this is Dr. Zoe. You are back, and we are speaking with Maura Sweeney about exiting your comfort zones. And I just finished the last segment with the quote that you are under no obligation to remain the same person you were yesterday. And that is so freeing for me. And I hope it's so freeing for you women as well, because if you find yourself in a place where you're not really comfortable or happy with where you are right now, it's okay to make those changes, even with all the people around you that expect you to remain the same. And so, Maura, I just wanted to talk a little bit about how do we know that it is time to exit a comfort zone? And how do we work on that fear? Because everybody has the fear. And I'm going to be talking a little bit later today about fear.
How do we know when it's time to exit the comfort zone? And this has nothing to do with age, because I could even look at my daughter as she's gone from one thing to another. When we feel like we've learned everything we can, and we start to get a little bit uneasy or bored or even crusty. So you could be 20 years old or 30 years old and think, okay, I've mastered everything here. I would say another thing, when we start to feel like we're not growing anymore, when we're a little bit impatient with things that we used to enjoy in our past. That is a big telling point, because sometimes we move into a new zone and we're mastering something new, but after we've mastered it and there's nothing more for us, we can actually feel ourselves growing impatient so that something has lost its life. Here's another thing. When we lose our energy, that's a real good telling. When there's no more energy in what we're doing, it means we either need to step out of the comfort zone or pivot a little bit and find a new area that we can grow in, that we can see things from a new perspective, even if we just extend out slightly in a new direction. But energy is a real big thing. And if the energy level is low, it's like, okay, I think I've run the gamut on this one.
I like that. And when we're talking about relationships as well, different ones in our lives, and women in seasons, I think also it's important to reevaluate, is this relationship still serving me? And if it's not serving me, is the benefit of me serving it great enough for me to remain in it? Because I think it's so important that women evaluate those things, because even in relationships, we stay in comfort zones that aren't necessarily healthy for us.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, because it's not always about what we're doing, but it's also about who we're with, whether they're friendships or any kind of relationship. And I always love to say this. I'm not experienced as you are in psychotherapy. In fact, most of what I do is just from life experiences. But this is one thing I always remember. It takes two to tango. So if we're in a relationship that is no longer serving us, that we are feeling stifled or reduced, which is the same thing, or we feel that we're not given place, or we're not even honored, or we're not even honoring the other people whose relationships we're in the middle of, then that's a good opportunity for us to say, what am I contributing to this? And is it time for me to withdraw, let's say, some of my attention, some of my time, and some of my energy?
And so then when we start to think, and when women realize, I think I need to get out of this comfort zone, I think that I'm in a place where I don't need to be, and I need to figure out how to get to the next step. The first thing that happens, and I've been there, and I'm sure you guys have been there, ladies, is fear. Fear grips us and keeps us from leaving those places. And so, do you have any tips for how we can deal with the fear? And then what would be that first step that a woman should take when she is thinking about and trying to get out of that?
Okay, first I want to think
really hard today.
No, that's all right. Because there's several questions involved. I'm thinking about relationships I've had in my past, especially when I was at home. Not only did I have the one child, but I had the dogs, I had exchange students. And I was around other women who saw me only one way. And I remember it was time that I was growing crusty. It was time for me to start growing again. And this is an interesting thing, and I hope somebody could hear this today. Sometimes people around us don't want us to change. They only want us within the confines of that relationship. And one of the things we need to say to ourselves is, am I willing to stay small or to behave in a certain manner in order to be included with a certain peer group? Or is there something else that's calling me in my heart to live a bigger life? And by the way, bigger doesn't mean great, but bigger means that you expand and become more of your genuine self, and you grow in whatever ways you need to. The other side of it, I would say, if there are those who choose to leave you or marginalize you because you supposedly changed, there will always be people on the other side there to greet you as you continue to expand your life. And that's something that I have found.
I love that you said that. That is so beautiful, and that is so true, because a lot of times the fear is, if I let go of this part of my life, there isn't going to be anything over here. And the reality is, just like you said, there are people and there are opportunities and there are things that will come up to greet you. And I just want to follow up on what you said about relationships. And that is so true that most of the time in relationships, the people that we are in relationship with don't want us to change. They are comfortable. They are in their comfort zone. And also, it's important to recognize that you don't have to end a relationship in order to leave your comfort zone. But what is going to happen is that when you change any part of the system, the other part of the system is going to try to pull you back to equilibrium. And so there will be that pull when you make a change to try to pull you back to where you were before. But if you are able to maintain that change, the rest of the system, if it values you, will actually meet you. And the entire experience will be different.
You know what? I love that. And I totally agree with you. And it brings something to mind. If you've ever watched people that climb mountains or people that have had to go down underwater, there are incremental steps people take. It's as if they need to get used to a new altitude or a new level underwater. And it's almost like taking new steps or taking baby steps, which might be outside your comfort zone, but you start to own that small baby step. And that's a good tip. Sometimes we don't have to just step way out, but we can just incrementally take a step in new directions and then start to own that step. And you're right, people who do value us will eventually come around and come back. And also, it's important to note that other people find structure something that keeps them feeling sound. And when you leave your structure that includes them, sometimes all you're looking at is their own fears, and you don't always have to react to it. Sometimes you could be the very vehicle that inspires other people to go for it too and to do something new, even if it means, I think, as you said earlier, jumping out of airplanes, whatever it was you do.
I did that. I wanted to do it for my 40th birthday. And I don't know, so many things were going on at that time and we couldn't kind of make it work. And so I did it for my sister's 40th birthday, which was even better. We went to Vegas and we had a girl weekend, which was just so wonderful because both of us are mamas of little ones. Of course, I have, a 16-year-old all the way down. At that time, she was 3, I think. And so we did. We went and we just said, we're going to do this. And we jumped out of a plane and it was so much fun and just a wonderful way to celebrate her 40th. And so, yes, that fear is there. And so what you have to do is recognize that that fear is normal. It is your body's normal reaction to really keeping you safe and keeping you comfortable. But comfortable isn't where you grow. You grow out of the discomfort. And so, whatever that first step is, if it's making a phone call, if it's, just doing one little thing that's different, responding to your spouse in a different way, if it's going somewhere that you've never gone, sometimes even and I have a client who told me that he only does it once a year. I said, you got to do it more than once a year. But once a year, he does something that's really outside of his comfort zone. And I said, that's great. But maybe we need to make it once a month. Do something that scares you. Do something that's a little bit different. And you'll start to see the world in a little bit of a different way. I love that. Okay, so we're gonna change focus a little bit because, I did a little bit of research on you. And I know that you did a global survey on what people want in life to be happy. And this, I think it relates because once again, you're stepping out of comfort zones in order to really try to fulfill yourself. And ultimately, I don't really like that word necessarily happy because it just means so many different things to different people. But really, I think of being fulfilled. And so can you share with us what those 5 things are?
I would love to. And, I asked people from, it was, I think, 25 states, 27 different countries. They're as young as 16, as old as in their 90s, from every background. And I said, how would you define happy? And so as a result of all the hundreds and hundreds of results, we started putting them into a couple of categories. When people think about what is their state of happiness, how would they get there? This is what they're looking for. Number 1, healthy relationships. So less drama, more interaction with people where it's something that helps people grow rather than feel like they're being diminished. So healthy relationships was first. The second one, peace of mind. And I think every one of us needs a state where we can be at rest, where we're not, feeling like we're frenetic or that we're in a constant state of fear, but peace of mind. The third was freedom. I know we're talking today with moms that are in the thick of things, but do you know sometimes that we can take, even if it means 5 to 10 minutes at the beginning of the day or late at night. Use that time for journaling. Use that time so you can almost hear the voice of your own soul, the thoughts of your own heart. That is the part that starts to give you an idea as to where you do find your freedom, who you are, what it is you want to explore, who you want to be, and how you want to reflect yourself in the world. The next thing, and I think this is good, purpose and fulfillment. And this is a really big thing when it comes to what kind of a life are we building? We might look like we're in a great place, but we might not feel fulfilled. So, what are some of those things that are important, and how do we find ways to explore them and exercise them? And the last thing, which I love, personal confidence. Do you know if we have healthy relationships, we have a sense of peace of mind, if there's a little bit of freedom that we carve out each day, even if it means just a little, if we manage to find ways to live a life of some purpose and fulfillment, then our personal confidence, which is the last piece, ends up growing. And if you look at most people in the world, and you could look at women too, how often do we only look at a few silos and everybody says, oh, I need to be like this or I need to be like that? But what if you need to look like you and you need to become the person you were meant to be with your skills, your abilities? And the more you're able to exercise them and give them place, then you find you're unlike anybody else. You have giftings and callings that make you feel personally confident because you gave them place. And you become, in a sense, a gift to yourself and your own heart. But generally, those same gifts end up overflowing into the lives of others. So you put all those 5 elements together, you have a happier person internally, and you've really got a happier environment you're creating.
You're absolutely right. And that's, I mean, on one hand, that doesn't surprise me, of course, because, I would understand that most people would say that. But I think the biggest thing that impedes people from this is that what you already just spoke about, that comparison and the competition and the idea that I have to be a certain way or mine isn't like that, so therefore it isn't as good. And so I really like what you said, that it's finding your own and owning it and recognizing that it doesn't have to look like anybody else's. So we are getting ready to go on break, and we're going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit about that competition between women. I think that competition between women is so fierce sometimes. You are listening to the Dr. Zoe Show, and we are here with my guest, Maura Sweeney, and we're talking about a lot of stuff. Women in competition. We're talking about getting out of your comfort zone and getting over that fear of change. We will be back in just a minute.
People ask me, how do you have so much energy? I am not a coffee drinker, but I love the benefits of matcha green tea. More antioxidants than coffee and a smooth energy, not the jittery kind that lasts me all day long. Perfect for you supermoms too. I have searched the world over for that perfect matcha for my smoothies, and I have found it at Kiss Me Organics. You can get it too at kissmeorganics.com. Enter the promo code Dr. Zoe, DRZOE, for 10% off and free shipping. Experience the smooth, healthy, organic energy of matcha green tea. KissMeOrganics.com.
Hi there. We are back. This is the Dr. Zoe Show, and I am here with my guest, Maura Sweeney, and we've been talking about stepping out of your comfort zone and the fear that sometimes keeps us from doing that. And another little issue that keeps us from being able to step out of our comfort zone and really walk into our passions is that area of competition with women. And we all have experienced it. And I've talked before about social media and how that enhances that whole aspect of competition. And for me, I talked about how I've been a stay-at-home mom. I've been a working mom. I've had businesses, and I'm also a homeschooler. And the thing is that most homeschooling moms are stay-at-home moms, probably because they're sane and they know it's crazy to have a career and homeschool your kids at the same time, which I do. And so I'm sometimes caught between two worlds. Sometimes I even feel like a fake in both worlds because I'm not just like the homeschooling moms, and I'm not really just like the career women because I really am kind of riding that fence. And I've had to come to terms with my comparing myself, I'm not doing these things that these career women are doing to, further their career. And, I'm not doing all the things that the homeschooling moms are doing. And so it's really having to come to terms, just like you were talking about, Maura, with who I am, that I am my own person and that my family is unique. And it's taken me a while to do that. And that is also my wish for women who are listening is to, like I say in my health tips, stop the comparisons, ladies. So can you help us out a little bit with that
Oh
competition
my
area?
goodness, you could see me. I am yesing you
Yes.
because I grew up right outside of New York City. So my mentality was I will never expect anybody to take care of me. I'm going to pull myself up by the bootstraps. I'm going to be a career woman. So I went from that very independent. I had whatever I needed.
Mhm.
And then I became the homeschooling mother.
Mhm.
And then I thought, oh my gosh, but here's the bottom line. And I hope people are listening. I never fit in. I was never fully part of anybody's demographic. I never fit in, even to this day, when, my daughter was going to college and I was in my 50s and I thought, I'm going to create a whole new career, take everything I did in my background, and I'm going to become this international speaker and I'm going to help change the world with some good thoughts. I don't look like anybody, and I never, this is interesting to say, and I think it's because I always knew the value of feeling true to myself, is that I never competed with anyone other than myself. I love to say my strengths are only outweighed by my weaknesses. I have certain strengths, but I've got loads of weaknesses. But in my weaknesses, I learned to appreciate other people and their strengths. So I was never jealous. I never looked to compare myself negatively with someone else. I would appreciate what they were, but I always looked to work on what it was that I was interested in. And it was those very interests and those very things I did, like being an early homeschool mother when nobody else did. They looked at me like there was something wrong with me,
Right.
helping my husband build a business, going around on these trips that I would go on and going to learn about things that nobody else was interested in, about geopolitics. People would look at me like, Maura, that's so boring. But I was following things that I liked. And here's the thing, as we become comfortable in who we are and we give ourselves permission to be that unique person we are, it's those very trials, those challenges, those unique places and experiences that we have when we put them together with hope and with, watching over our own lives to the best of our ability, we end up showing up as a completely different entity. And it's in that place that we find our specialties, that we find our greatness, that we find our own gifts that we don't need to compare with anybody else.
You are absolutely right. And as I listen to you say that, I think that one thing is that you are very rare and that most women do, have that feeling of competition, do compare themselves to others. And so we can learn from you because what you have and what you do is something that we really ought to aspire to. And the other thing that I'm thinking is that, women, as you're listening to this, I don't want you to feel like, well, I've got to, step out and do this whole, amazing big thing. And it's okay if you look like, on some levels, all the other women. You have a superpower too, and you don't have to break out and become a Maura Sweeney and be an international speaker or even, do any of the things that I'm doing. But what you have to do is find yours and embrace yours and not compare yours to somebody else and say, oh, that's not good enough. And I've done that too. I've said, oh, well, my story's not that interesting, or it's kind of boring, or it's not like that person's, right? And what you have to do is recognize, but your story is yours and it is unique and nobody else has it. And in that, you have something to share with someone else so that they can get something too. And you have a gift to share with the world.
Absolutely. And I'm looking at you as you're sharing this and you're smiling. It is the truth. We are all trained. And I think a lot of it has to do with not just culture, but media, which of course is part of culture. It's always that the answer is out there, that the person or the icon is out there. No, it's not, because I knew this, that sometimes doing things that sound right might be great for somebody else, but I knew what it felt like for me and it didn't feel right. And I'm going to say this. There were many times I thought, oh my gosh, I probably look like an idiot compared to other people for the things I've said no to. But I knew my end game was I want to be happy. I want to feel free. And by the time I leave this earth, I want to know I was myself and not a carbon copy of someone else. And it's so true. Sometimes it's even the very struggles we go through that become our greatest stories. Do you know my books that I wrote? My first book was called Exiting the Comfort Zone, Dance or Die. When I was a very young child, all I wanted to do was learn how to dance. And because I was brought up to be a lawyer, that was not an option. I didn't start learning how to dance till I was 49 years old and counting. I enrolled in a local college. I failed the class twice. I had kids at class, whatever, students,
Right.
laughing at me, not with me, and I almost ruined an on-stage performance. But guess what? It was something I always wanted to do. It was a terrible weakness. I was like, I was awful. But in the end, I found my happiness. I became so much freer. I got a lot more confident in terms of my own ability to move my body. And I started a book series. And it relates to anybody who's looking to get out of their comfort zone, because they could think, oh my gosh, if this lady could learn how to dance, I could do anything.
I love it. I love it. And, just to get a little academic on you, that stepping out and doing those new things actually helps to keep your brain young. It does, because when we do the same thing over and over again, our brain atrophies, just like any other muscle, it atrophies. And because you're not using it all. And when you do step out of that comfort zone, you really do keep yourself young. You reduce your chance of Alzheimer's. You have all kinds of really great things going on in your brain. So, Maura, this has been just a wonderful, wonderful conversation. Okay, so you have some promotions, right, for some of my viewers. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I do. First of all, I want to thank you so much for having me on. This is me. I just love these conversations. Okay, two things. I hope that anyone who's listening will find me on iTunes or Stitcher, Maura Sweeney, Living Happy Inside Out. But the promotions, write to me, Maura, Maura, at Maura, 4u.com, and ask for a free copy of one of two books. One is Exiting the Comfort Zone, if you want to exit yours, and the other one is a book on competition. Invite me to send you one of them for free, and I think that you'll read into the story. You will see your own life story in it, and you will come out with a more hopeful outcome. And I think most of us are not giving ourselves permission. These books are designed to help you go within and give yourself permission. And for people who really want to grow and really step into something bigger, I've also got an e-course. It's called Foundations of Happiness. They could find it on my More For You website. And if I'm not mistaken, I think there's even a promotional code called, is it Superwoman?
I think was it Superwoman?
I think
or
it
Dr.
is
Zoe?
Superwoman,
Okay,
and you could get a 25% discount. And in that, you could watch things, you could read stories, you could listen to things. There's a place for you to learn how to become more intuitive, how to start journaling, and really get in touch with who you are on the inside, so you could live a happier and more authentic life on the outside, regardless of your background, regardless of where you are, and regardless of how limited you may feel.
Great. And those are a couple first steps for stepping out of your comfort zone. And so all of the stuff that Maura just talked about, I will make sure I also have in the notes if you are listening via podcast. Thank you so much, Maura. You have a wonderful day. And I really appreciate this conversation.
Same here. Thank you.
Okay, you take care. You are listening to the Dr. Zoe Show, and we are getting ready to go on break. I'm going to come back and talk about a couple health tips and some real talk with Dr. Zoe. I'll see you in just a minute.
People ask me, how do you have so much energy? I am not a coffee drinker, but I love the benefits of matcha green tea. More antioxidants than coffee and a smooth energy, not the jittery kind that lasts me all day long. Perfect for you supermoms too. I have searched the world over for that perfect matcha for my smoothies, and I have found it at Kiss Me Organics. You can get it too at kissmeorganics.com. Enter the promo code Dr. Zoe, DRZOE, for 10% off and free shipping. Experience the smooth, healthy, organic energy of matcha green tea. KissMeOrganics.com.
Hi, guys. You are back with the Dr. Zoe Show. We just had a really great conversation with Maura Sweeney. We talked about getting out of your comfort zone, and some takeaways that I had for that is, first of all, knowing when to exit. So you should think about what's going on in your life and exiting your comfort zone when you're no longer growing, when things in your life no longer serve you. So that's evaluating your relationships. That's evaluating things that are going on. When we lose our energy, or when things just don't feel okay anymore. And then so that's when you know it's time to think about making some change. And so I will also put those things that Maura talked about on the podcast, connecting with her and her promotions, which are really wonderful. Next up, health tips. Remember, your body and mind are intimately connected. You can't have health in one without health in the other. And that is why I have a health tip. Healthy looks different on everybody. So stop those comparisons, ladies. We talked a lot about competition today and comparisons and how hard it is on us and how it keeps us from being able to live our authentic self, which is so important. So my health tip for today is to change it up. When we talk about getting out of your comfort zone, don't be afraid to do something different in your workout or your lifestyle. And changing it up gets your body out of a rut and it super kickstarts your metabolism. So a few times a month, try a different activity. It's not just good for your body, it's also good for your brain. Like I talked about it, novelty keeps the brain young. And when we do the same things over and over and over, our brain atrophies. So for me, I do jog regularly. I also do lots of other weights and things like that. But I love to sprint at least once a week because I know it changes everything up for my body. It kickstarts my metabolism and I see a difference. So that's my little health tip for today. Change it up, ladies. So real talk now. If you're just tuning in, this is Dr. Zoe, and this is Real Talk, where I answer questions from my listeners. I share some of my own musings and encouragement. Please reach out to me if you have questions you'd like me to address on the show. All questions are anonymous. I take your confidentiality seriously, just as if you were my own client. You can email questions to Zoe at drzoeshaw.com or connect with me on any of my social medias. So I had a question. How do I deal with a crazy mother-in-law? That is a hard one. And whether it's a mother-in-law or whether it's a mother of your boyfriend or fiance, that relationship is so difficult. Number one, if you are a mom, and you're thinking about your child finding that partner, already you probably get those little butterflies or that little angst coming up. I think about it. I've got two sons, 16 and 13, and it is hard. Even when my son gets a girlfriend, it's hard for me to go, okay, yes, she's nice. And thinking about her taking that place. And that's really what it's about, is another woman taking that place in your child's life. And it's sticky. It's sticky. And the other issue is that two women cannot rule the same roost. It just doesn't work out. And so people have to kind of juggle and find their place. And there's loss and there's grief and there's, a lot of things in that transition. So you have to know that emotionally, that's what's going on. So first step first. You want to work on always taking each other's side first. So if your spouse is having a problem with the mother-in-law or you're having a problem with the mother-in-law, you want to make sure that you guys are able to talk about it and see if you guys can try to communicate with her from a joint place, from a unified front. And then the other thing is to always try to see her side. And just like I was trying to get you to understand emotionally where a woman's coming from, when another woman takes the place, becomes the most important woman in her son's life, how difficult that is. A little tip, and I've talked about this in all relationships, is to go, okay, that person is right. That's a difficult one. Because when you're able to say that person is right, then you have to ask yourself, well, why are they right? And then it's easy to kind of take their side. It doesn't mean that you're going to go to them and you're going to always acquiesce. But if you can take the position of that person is right, it makes it a lot easier to be able to communicate with them. The other thing is setting healthy boundaries. And I've been married for 24 years, I think now, which means I've had a mother-in-law for 24 years and I love her, but there are mother-in-law issues that happen. And it's important to set those boundaries and try to set them early in a healthy and loving way, which means there's certain rules that need to be in relationships. And when people, cross those boundaries, you need to be able to immediately address it in a loving way. And then the other thing is, like I said, being able to create a united front. So it all comes down to being able to talk and communicate. If you have any more questions about mother-in-law issues, I would be more than happy to talk to you about them. Please connect with me at zoe@drzoeshaw.com. And so I want to talk to you guys a little bit about vulnerability, because we talked about stepping out of your comfort zone. And I've been really obsessed with Brené Brown. I know a lot of you guys might know her already, but I've really just started reading a lot of her books and I am in love. And she talks about this woman is a researcher. I believe she has a PhD, and she's a licensed social worker. And she has spent her life researching vulnerability and shame and how that affects people and really keeps people from living, good lives. But what I loved about what she talked about is this is a woman who specializes in being vulnerable, who specializes in helping people tell their stories and talking about the importance of it. And she did a TED Talk. And when she did this TED Talk, this was the first time she was actually sharing her own story and becoming vulnerable. And this TED Talk really catapulted her career. And she said that after she did that TED Talk, she went into the hotel room and basically just kind of curled herself up into a fetal position and couldn't believe how vulnerable she had just been. And she talked about how that felt. And she has never listened to that TED Talk. And I don't know how many years ago, 10 years, I don't know how many years ago she did that TED Talk. She has never listened to it, but it has allowed her to have this huge career and write even more books and have this huge platform. And so I'm telling you that because a lot of times people feel that, well, I need to feel okay with something before I step out and do it. I need to not fear something before I step out and do it. And Brené Brown is an absolute example of doing something when you are more than terrified, doing something that steps you outside of your comfort zone, even so much that she could never listen to it again. But knowing that that piece of her, that was that real authentic piece, and that's the piece that the world connected with her. And so I'm just asking you guys to think about that and to kind of ponder, and I'm planting some seeds so that you can think about in your life, how can I be more authentic? How can I share my vulnerability with others? Because really in life, that's how we connect with each other. And I'm on that journey with you guys as well. That's why I shared my story this morning about my crazy morning with my kiddos. And I didn't even share it all, but just to let you know that I am a real woman, just like you are. And I am walking this journey with you, but I have that passion to help you find that superpower and share it with the world. So thank you for tuning in to the Dr. Zoe Show. Tune in next week and every week on Tuesday from 12 to 1 Pacific and 3 to 4 Eastern at LA Radio Now. For those who can't always listen live, check out the reruns of my show. It's on iTunes, Google Play, Libsyn, and YouTube, where I am your life and relationship coach. I help sometimes struggling superwomen keep your mind in the game by redefining your superwoman. If you know of a friend who may benefit from any of our topics, please spread the love and share my show. And if you like my show, show me some love with some stars. Connect with me at drzoeshaw.com or any of my social medias at the handle Dr. Zoe Shaw. And you can join my free newsletter and get a copy of 30-Minute Life Transformation, The Secret to Getting Stuff Done, by texting the word JOIN to 38470. I look forward to speaking to you wonderful ladies on social media after the show. Have a super week.
You've been listening to The Dr. Zoe Show, redefining your superwoman, with your host, Dr. Zoe Shaw. Don't forget to sign up for her monthly newsletters to get encouragement, tips, and skills for keeping your mind in the superwoman game. Connect with her now at www.drzoeshaw.com. Tell your friends and subscribe to her podcast on iTunes. Join us next time for another edition of The Dr. Zoe Show.